Welcome to the Impactful Entrepreneur Show with Adrienne Hill, a place for online business industry expertise and thought leadership, where you can build the skills, structure, and systems you need to thrive in business and have a lasting impact in your industry. Let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm super excited about the massive value that we have for you in this interview. You know, the co-host of the Top 100 Apple podcast, Growth Mode, and the CEO of Time on Target, Kevin Snow, is a sales expert and a serious technology geek who knows how to help his clients take their automation game to the next level and is changing the game of business development. With a 20-year career working with brands like Frontier Communications, Nextel, Salesforce, and BNI, his knowledge, skills, and understanding of communication and technology are getting real results for the businesses he works with. Kevin knows how to integrate digital technology with your sales process in an authentic, professional way. He'll show you what you've been missing in terms of ensuring an effective system of outreach and trust building. And today he is here to talk to us about automating your emails for sales growth. We are so excited to dig in with you. Welcome so much. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this. This is going to be a really cool conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait to dig in because I know there's tons of us out there who we're either discovering, the world of automations for the first time, or we're waist deep and we're trying to pick the right options, the right tools, the right strategies. And so regardless of what boat our audience might be in, this is going to be hugely value added. Now, before we geek out completely and jump in, for those in the audience who maybe have not met you yet, can you tell us just a little bit about you and your story and kind of what led you up to this point of being an expert in this space?
Sure. So, funny thing is, the last semester I was in college, I went home and I think it was probably like Christmas break. And I'm like, Mom, Dad, I think I'm changing my major again. I think I want to go into marketing. And they're like, no, you're graduating in May. You just go. You're done with school.
Keyword being again.
Yeah, again. The keyword is I'm going to change it again. They're like, no, you're not. You're graduating. So I graduated, but I didn't go into my field. I actually got a job right out of college with a telecom firm doing hybrid sales. So I was doing sales and account management with them, and I was horrible. And I got fired within my first year. I was completely horrible at the sales thing and prioritizing work and that whole thing. But then my next job was at Nextel and corporate sales. Remember the walkie-talkie phones? I loved them. They were so cool. Yeah. But there was where I actually figured out how to sell. And I decided I know how to do this and I can be really good at it, make some really good money. So I stuck in the sales and the business world with them. I went through one of their business partners for a while. They're indirect agents, sold for them, did some distribution channel management for them as well, and built out a sub program. And went into just did tech sales. I was selling cell phones, and I went in and sold managed services for a while. I sold Salesforce.com, and that was my exposure into the sales automation world with CRMs. And this is back when it was still a software and not just a portal on the website. So, I was doing that. And around that time, I got involved with another organization that was a business networking organization. And I got really sucked heavily into their world. And I became one of their area directors. So I was managing 50 of their chapters, over 1,500 members. And I was basically I was helping grow the region, but then I was also coaching all the members, and I was figuring out how to help them grow their business through word of mouth marketing and networking. And it was really kind of cool. And at a certain point, one of the other executive directors from a different region is like, hey, you're really good at this launching chapters thing. Can we bring you in to teach our team how to do that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I would love to visit Houston or Miami. There's multiple people asking me. They're like, yeah, we'll pay for your airfare and we'll get your hotel room. I'm like, sweet bonus. This is awesome. And then they're like, yeah, and we'll pay you. What? You're going to pay me too? It's like, yeah. And that's how Time on Target was born, because I needed a company where I could take payments. So most people start companies because they have this really cool idea. It's like, no, people wanted to give me money and I needed a tax ID. So we started Time on Target, and it became because I was still doing the networking thing, and I just started doing public speaking and training at companies about networking and sales and speaking at other business organizations. It was all really cool. but I was also in the Army at the time, Minnesota National Guard. And then I deployed and came back, and there was literally, I had no speaking gigs lined up. I had nothing in my pipeline. I'm like, oh crap. And that's when I really got into the sales consulting piece. We did a huge pivot with the company where then turned the speaking into a business development tool for me as opposed to the actual product. And then we started going into businesses and actually helping them launch their programs. And we helped them start figuring out, hey, how do you sell? What's the process look like? How do you train new salespeople to do the same thing? How do your clients make purchasing decisions? And then we would start, we kept niching down our focus until we were really tightly engaged in just that business process piece. And we got rid of all the, here's how you hire salespeople, and here's how you train them, and here's how you manage. We got rid of all that. It's like, all right, we're going to help you figure out how to sell, and we're going to help you figure out how your buyers buy. And then came the second huge aha, or what I call my, oh God, Kevin, you're an idiot moment, was when I realized that I was throwing away thousands of dollars because I was bringing in other people to do the automation for these processes. So we discover, all right, here's where we need to automate things, or here's what we need to do to integrate your CRM better with everything. I'd bring someone else in to do it. And my realization was, you're dumb, because you're doing that all for your business. You can do that for everyone else and get paid to do it. So we niched down again to really into that automation area and helping people figure out, all right, so how do you apply tech into your outside sales process? And that's really where we've been since, and really focused on how do you integrate your CRM? How do you integrate an email tool into an outside process where you have a salesperson, so that the salesperson can actually manage more businesses in the pipeline and close that business faster.
Well, and that's a perfect topic here, because this entire event is all about any kind of smart strategy that you've systematized into your business so it's consistent, consistent. Because it's one thing to do it once. It's another thing if you do it and you're getting results, and anyone who's had success knows, you systematize that thing as quickly as you possibly can.
Yep, for sure.
And if it's working and you can systematize it and it keeps working, man, show it to some other people, because they're probably going to love it. And they're probably looking for something like that. So that's perfect.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, with most small businesses, they don't understand the process that they use for selling. Because I'll ask them, all right, so walk me through what your sales process looks like. And they won't know.
They can't even describe it.
Yeah, they can't describe it at all. So I have to ask a bunch of different questions and I still ask the question, even knowing that they're going to say, I don't know, we don't have a process, because I want to hear them say it. And I want them to have that realization that they had to just say that out loud to someone. It's like, I don't know how we sell things, because that is a big thing for a business owner.
Well, and if it helps them to recognize, so I have this process that has 52 holes in it. Okay, let's start plugging those holes, right?
Well, it's they don't even understand they have a process. And then we are able to have that conversation about, here's how you scale. If you need to have a process that you can replicate and you can teach other people to do. I'm like, that's how salespeople learn to sell. We're taught a process. Yeah. My first sales jobs, both at Nextel and at the telecom company that ended up firing me, they put us through like a month worth of training before we even got to talk to a prospect.
Yeah. Because I think it's so true in the world of sales. It's like 50% having the people skills and knowing how to truly help someone.
Yep.
And 50% plugging into a process and knowing exactly what you're doing each step of the way. Because for those of you watching, especially if you're in the audience and you're thinking, do I have a sales process? And what is it? If the answer is, I don't know, I wing it, it's different every time, you need this interview.
Well, yeah. But the funny thing is, even when people say that, and then I start questioning them, I'm like, well, you actually have a process. Here's what it is.
You just didn't think about it that way.
Don't think about it that way. It's become an ingrained way that people do things. The other fun question I always ask business owners when we're trying to figure out how they sell is, what is that one thing that you will say to a prospect that every time you say it, you can see the lights go on in their eyes because they get it. And now they understand. And they're like, oh, wow, I've never thought about that. I'm like, well, if you think about it long enough, you're going to realize there is that one thing you always say, and you're not going to realize that you say it, but there is. So, that's really the key, because once you understand how you're selling, now you can start looking at how your buyer makes those decisions and make sure that they're lined up. Because as salespeople, whether you're the owner or just a sales W-2 sales employee, our goal is always to get to that yes, to get to that point where they're saying, yes, let me sign the contract or let me give you money. And so we're trying to get there as quickly as possible. And we're not always paying attention to where the buyer's at in their process. And if we push too hard, then we enter that world of being the pushy sales guy or sales gal, or, that used car sales feel.
Yes.
Where there are people like, oh, I don't know if I want to work with him because he's really pushy. Whereas if you can identify, oh, Adrian's at this point in her buyer decision and I need to give her this type of stuff, you can actually accelerate how they make that decision and move them through the process faster. Yeah. So you have to be able to map that piece out too, so you can see, all right, we're at the same point, or they're ahead of me, or I'm ahead of them, and I need to adjust my speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those watching who maybe are realizing like, I have a sales process, it's maybe hit or miss, or maybe I've just never defined it before. Do I have all the right pieces? I'm not even sure. In your mind, when you look at setting up a systematized process around, email automations, because that's part of the process, how you're communicating, how do the communication automations layer into the bigger picture? Like, are there a few key pieces that you always look for when people are setting up their sales process and linking it in with their automations?
Yeah, there's two key things that you want to automate in a sales process. One of them is redundant tasks, and the other one is redundant communications. So ideally, for salespeople, there's always this idea that we have to re-enter contact info into multiple systems. We have to put it in the CRM, then we might have to put it into another system. Then we may have to type it in again into our proposal tool, whatever that is, as opposed to I type it in once and then it goes wherever I need it based on the system. So you want to look at those tasks, whether it be data entry, reporting, all that administrative stuff that you can automate and take off your salespeople's plate or off your plate as the owner. Then the second piece is the communications part. So you're always going to look for those redundant communications, for example, hey, thanks for meeting with me this week. It was great to learn more about you and your company email that most salespeople will send out. It's usually the exact same thing to everyone. And if you automate it, you don't have to worry about that salesperson putting in the wrong name or forgetting to change the name when they hit send. So there's that, but there's also the communication piece where you're feeding content to the buyer at key points of the process. So it may be supporting content that will support a conversation that the salesperson just had with that decision maker. And you want to give them additional information to support what the salesperson's been saying. Or, there's specific questions that a person is asking as they're going through their buyer's journey to get to that next step. You're going to want to make sure that they can get those answers easily. In front of the client, the salesperson is always going to be kind of going with the flow and seeing how the meeting's running and throwing out information, asking questions and having that conversation. But by then having that supporting email afterwards, it allows you to make sure, hey, we've gotten them all the right info. Whether the salesperson said it or not, it's still there. They're getting it. And then you can actually track their engagement because you're able to see, did they click on it? Did they go to this site? What else did they do with it? Did they forward it? Did they share it? All that type of information, which then gives, if you have your program set up right, is going to give a ton more information back to the salesperson to be able to understand what's actually going on with their prospect.
Yeah, I mean, how valuable to have a system with behavioral adaptive marketing that shows you, oh, they clicked the link, they watched the video, they watched the whole video, and then they forwarded the email to someone.
Well, and it's funny because when I have this conversation and I bring in marketing and sales for some of my larger clients, the marketing will usually have all these drip campaigns already set up that they are sending to people. And then the salesperson, if they didn't get the sale the first time and they're following up, or, they said, hey, call us back in 6 months, as salespeople, their go-to phrase is, hey, I'm just checking in, just reaching out. And the client is like, but I've gotten 10 emails from you. What do you mean you're just checking in? You've been emailing me all this stuff for the last 3 months.
To them, it's not two separate people. It's one company. And it says, doesn't the right hand know what the left hand is doing? Exactly.
And the salesperson's like, oh, okay. And so he's thrown for a loop and they don't know what to say. But then the client is confused because I'm getting stuff that has your name on it and you don't even know you're sending it. It's like, it must be our automated tool. But that's key information for the salesperson to know, because it allows them to approach the prospect correctly. What my favorite one that I like to talk about is if a prospect is clicking on your pricing page, that's something I want to know as a salesperson, because that is a buying signal. That means they are at the bottom of that sales cycle, the bottom of the funnel, and they're getting ready to make decisions. You don't look at the pricing page at the beginning unless you're trying to kind of determine some, cost analysis, like, do we even want to spend time fixing this? But normally when people are at your pricing page, they're ready to make a decision. So if I have a prospect that's hitting my pricing page multiple times, I need to know so that I can reach out in a coincidental fashion and have a conversation with them. Oh, I'm so glad you called. I was just at your website the other day. It's like, oh, really? What were you doing there? Oh, they were on our pricing page. So, that communication is really key from your automation system to your salespeople to be able to send those notifications.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So when it comes to the world of email marketing and text message marketing, what are some of the key ways that you like to leverage those to feed the sales process? And when is the right time to automate versus not? Because I know tons of people are worried about being salesy.
Yep.
Or they're worried about automating too much and then looking like a robot, right? There's a fine line. So how do you like to leverage email and text in your automations?
So let's talk about the when is the right time to automate and not sounding salesy, because that is one of my key things I like to talk about with people. The key to not sounding salesy is to write like you normally talk. Mm-hmm. So and this freaks my marketing people that I work with out all the time, because I always tell them, stop talking like a marketer, stop writing like a marketer. Write like a salesperson, write like how we talk to the client. You may come up with all these really cool value proposition statements. We understand them. We don't use them. That's
not like natural language. You're saying
exactly.
Just be a human. Just
be a human. Yeah. We will take those value prop statements and we'll reword them so they fit our personalities and that the client will understand them and they talk like they talk. If you're selling to construction companies, construction people talk a certain way. They don't talk like financial planners. So, they don't talk like an IT guy. So you have to understand who you're selling to, how they communicate, and then how your salespeople that are interacting with them are communicating as well. So it needs to sound like it's coming from me, not like I just cut and paste some marketing content. Mm-hmm. So that's really key. And it always makes my marketing people's heads spin when I tell them to stop talking like a marketer. But it's really key because you want it to sound human. One of my clients, and now we're business partners for a new venture. The first thing we automated for him was a welcome series for his Facebook group. Mm-hmm. So super simple campaign. We automated when they put someone in the Facebook group. It added them to a Google sheet, which then pushed it into the automation tool. And then they got this 6 email series over 2 weeks of, welcome to the group. And here's all the things to do. The first email was hey, welcome to the group. Here's all the rules. Don't break them. We'll kick you out. Now go post something and introduce yourself. The second email, we made it sound really hyper like Donnie, like my business partner. Mm-hmm. And we made the subject was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm an ass.
Yeah. Because that's how
number one email. It's still our number one email for opens. And then in the copy was, hey, I'm so sorry. I was so excited to have you in our group that, I told you all the really cool stuff, but I forgot to introduce myself. So can we start over? My name's Donnie, and here's 3 things most people don't know about me. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to have you reply to this and tell me these things. And if you ask me a question, I'll reply back with the answer to the number one question we get next time. Well, at least once a week, we get a reply back from people where they actually hit reply and they type in, oh my God, Donnie, I don't think you're an ass. I wasn't offended at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is a big unsubscribe block at the bottom of this email because it's automated. So it has to have that. I'm like, did you all not see this? But it's because it sounds like Donnie and it feels like Donnie's actually talking to them, that they're like, oh no, I didn't think this at all.
You know what I love about that? Not only is that email just more human and more real, it gets opened a ton, mm-hmm. and it gets responses. And I know if people are replying to your emails, all the email deliverability systems are more likely to put it right in the inbox and not in the spam.
Exactly. They look at opens, clicks and replies. Opens is really hard now because of the thing Apple did where they just open everything automatically and mark it as opened. So they're, yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So on iPhones now in the Apple email system, whenever you get an email on your phone, it just automatically marks it as opened and reports as open to the email providers.
That's a really odd thing to do.
Well, it's good for them when they're trying to stop the tracking, the marketing tracking and having that type of info. But it sucks for us as sales and marketing people because opens were hard to track before. Now they're almost impossible. And it's really just a wasted metric anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the click-throughs are really key and the replies are really key for it to tell email systems like, oh, no, this is actually a really good email.
Yeah. How often, what's your favorite and how often do you like to use email versus text?
So I use it. It's very situational. So if there is a ton of content I need to put out, I will usually do it all in email because then you can obviously send longer messages. No one wants to get that email, that text message that's been split into 5. That's just a pain. I'm like, really? Stop blowing up my phone. You also have to really understand who your audience is. Mm-hmm. So certain age demographics are more apt to want text messages than others. The Gen X, that's me. We're kind of in the middle. We will take it, but we are okay without getting text messages about stuff as well. The generation before us is much. My parents don't want text messages. They're like, no. Gotcha. Yeah, if you're texting me, you better know me. Otherwise, why are you sending me a text message? So, but then the younger generations, they want it more, or they now want it on WhatsApp or another messaging service. So you have to understand who your target is and how they want to be communicated with. Mm-hmm. I tell the same thing to people that are redoing their website. I'm like, all right, you need to give them options. You're going to have people who want to do the contact us form and type in stuff and then get emailed back. But then you also have people who want to do live chat. Mm-hmm. So when I now buy software systems for Time on Target and Success Champions that we're going to subscribe to, if there's not a live chat support feature, I am kind of grumpy. Because when I'm working on something and I want to figure out why it doesn't work, I want to be able to figure out why it doesn't work, not have to put it on pause and come back later. So
24 or 48 hours later, which who has time for that?
Or even 3 hours later is annoying because I'm in the right mindset to actually be building and creating and doing things. And then I have to stop because I can't figure it out. Or I've spent the entire 3 hours trying to figure it out. And now I'm just really frustrated. Yeah. So I like having the chat piece. I won't chat in just on a website to ask questions. I'm completely fine with email. It's like, yeah, you can get back to me. I don't care. But people get to decide their urgency. And that's the key thing. So you want to give them options. So we'll usually do text as reminders for things as a pretty common feature. So, our recording today, calendar events, hey, don't forget, we're going to be meeting in an hour. I can't wait to see you. Here's the link in case you're on the road, all that type of stuff. I've set up stuff for a Legion last week, and we're doing text marketing for them. And it's all people are going to be able to scan a QR code, opt into their text SMS program, and they're going to get discounts. Hey, buy one, get one free this night if you have this code, that type of stuff. Hey, we have this event coming up. It's the Summer Veterans Dance. You can get your tickets here. And they're going to give people access to early events and try and drive patronage of the Legion using text. And it's going to be super easy because, no one wants emails from their Legion, but hey, send me a text with a buy one, get one free for a mixed drink. Sure. Let's hit their Legion Friday night. Yeah. So, it's really situational based for us.
Yeah. So, and you've talked a lot about, this has been peppered throughout. So I want to mention this. You talk about how the prospects, the leads that you're talking to, they're at some point in that customer journey and that what you give them has to match how far they are into that journey. How do you identify those touch points and how do you identify what they need at each point and then use automation and to help you get more sales there?
So this is going to be shocking to some of our listeners today, but the best way to identify that is to ask them.
Talk to them. Just
literally talk to people who have said yes and bought from you, and then talk to people who said no and didn't buy from you. And the ones who said yes, if they like your service and you're doing really great things for them, they're going to be happy to give you feedback, and because they want you to stay in business and be successful, because it's a pain to change vendors.
Someone's having a good experience with you. Chances are they want to continue having that good experience.
Exactly. They want you to get better so they can keep working with you and not have to switch, because that's a pain. And the bigger your company is, the harder it is to switch, and the bigger the pain it is. So that's what we always do when we're working with a client that we're doing a buyer journey map for is, hey, I need a list of these types of clients. Good clients, bad clients, people who said yes and then left, people who never came on board. And I usually get, the business owner, the face normally just goes white, and they're like, you're going to talk to our clients? I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
And better yet, I'm going to talk to them without you in the room.
Because then they'll give the real answers.
Then they'll give the real answer. Exactly.
Right. So there's the person who found you, who was checking out your stuff, and they, for whatever reason, didn't move forward with it at all. The person that maybe you had a conversation with them, maybe even a sales call, but they decided not to move forward.
Yep.
Then there's the person who had the sales call, they move forward, they're partway through the process. And then there's the person who completed the full process and they're, on to the next thing.
I usually won't talk to people who are in the midst of the sales process, because I don't want to screw up the salesperson's mojo.
Yeah, that's true. They might get mad at you.
Yeah. And I don't want to screw that up, because I don't know what's going on and what type of conversations. And it's more of a bigger variable for me. And I don't want to add this. All right, who's this strange person now asking me about stuff? And because then it also freaks out the salesperson. Like, is management checking up on me? What's going on here?
What are they doing?
So so it's always people who said yes and are current clients, people who said yes and were clients but left, and then people that said no and then become clients. That group is a little harder. They're not always willing to talk, but usually the other ones are.
Sure.
So, but then it's just getting them in, and I'll usually do it on video, and a lot of times I'll do it on Zoom, and then I can just record it so that the company has the entire conversation, and they can watch it later if they want.
Yeah.
But then it's literally, we ask them a ton of questions and walk through and get, ideas about, what's important for them. How do they decide which vendors to work with? How do they set up criteria? Who's involved in decisions? Is it just the owner that has final say in everything, or do they delegate out to people? How do they decide who to bring in to give advice and consult? We ask lots of details, and we get them to just really kind of share the secret sauce for how they make decisions as a business owner. And then we take it all and just kind of put it together and try and figure out, all right, so what are all the similarities? What are all the things that they're all asking? And and
I would imagine even for the solo entrepreneur, right, who maybe they're a coach or a course creator or, someone in network or affiliate marketing, they have an offer, but they don't have a big team. They're not a big company. But I would imagine even if they understood those three distinct people and what's going on in their head at different points in the process, you could create a FAQ section that addresses all those objections. You could create bonus content that addresses some of the objections or things standing in their way. It would give you a clue of what your marketing materials need to be, what to send in those follow-up emails.
And it gives them a clue of what order all that information should show up in.
Yeah.
If you are a course creator and you are doing a webinar or a workshop that's going to feed into your sales funnel or get people to actually just purchase your course outright, there's a certain way you need to present all the information. To help them move through that buying process. And, with the big chunk of that workshop being a solution that you're giving them where they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. Yeah. But, all the other stuff has to be done in a certain order, because if they're not ready for the information, but you're giving it to them anyway, they're not going to pay attention because that's not what they're thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure at this point, those viewing are realizing, I want to understand my client's buying process. I want to understand what step of the journey they're on. I want to understand what questions to ask and in what order, and therefore what information to share and in what order. So I know you have a free gift that could help them get started with mapping that out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we do have a free gift for everyone today. So what we have is kind of just a PDF. It's like a 4 or 5 page PDF. But the first half of it is just the questions that you need to be asking your clients to be able to figure out what their buying process is. So when you're going to do that client interview, these aren't questions that you would ask during a sales process. These are the questions you ask after. And when you're trying to figure out, all right, so what happened? Why did they buy? Why didn't they buy? How did they make the decision? This is what you do in that interview that we talked about. And there's a whole list of questions that you can go through that's help you to determine specific things that's going on with the buyer's decision process as they move through their journey. And then the second half of the PDF is actually a list of content that you can utilize in the sales cycle as bonus information or as lead magnets. And it's all mapped out to the generic step in the buyer's cycle. So if, for example, case studies are a big one for people that are at the beginning of the sales process, they're at the top of the funnel, if you want to use that term, and they're trying to figure out, do we even have a problem? Is this something we need to expend time and energy on to try and fix, or is it actually not so bad and we can survive like it is and just keep, the status quo? And vice versa, like we talked about with the pricing page, that's a piece of information that is on the bottom of the funnel, where people are getting ready to make that buyer's decision. Checklists are another one that people will usually consume when they're getting ready to make a decision because they want reinforcement that I'm making the right decision. Right. So those are both things that are really good. So we have like 50 different types of content all mapped out where they normally correspond in the sales cycle.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that because there's probably tons of people in the audience who they haven't started this process at all. And this will basically be their one-stop shop. Or they've started systematizing that sales process, but they're realizing, I think I might have a gap. Or am I sharing maybe I'm sharing all the right information, but the wrong order, I'm not sure. So just to have your years of experience and basically have that easy button is so helpful. Thank you for sharing that with our audience.
Yeah, for sure. And the other cool thing that it allows you to do is, understand timing and where, who's doing what within your pipeline. So we do lead scoring. So you may have a prospect that's went through your sales process prior. They said no, and they've gone through some drip campaigns, but they're, just kind of not engaged. But all of a sudden you see them clicking on certain things. You're able, if you have it mapped out, you can set up your automation and say, ooh, all right, so Adrienne started clicking on these things again. So she's kind of here. And now she's clicking on here. Now we want to have her engage with an actual salesperson. So you can really, in that mapping piece and understanding the content that they're consuming, you can understand, all right, when is the key time that a real person actually needs to talk to them? When they are ready to actually have Kevin reach out and say, hey, I'm Kevin, I'm with Time on Target. And we saw you've been checking out some of our information on how to automate. And I'd love to know if you had any questions, how can I help? And be able to have that real person. If you too soon, they're like, oh, get away. It's creepy.
I'm just looking.
Exactly. One of the technology pieces that we will use from time to time with clients is really good at that. Literally, I will download or I'll visit a blog and they will message me immediately with 10 minutes after I leave the page. Hey, we saw you were checking out this blog post. Here's some other content that you might be interested in. I'm like, all right, that's really creepy. And then 10 minutes later, I get a phone call from my rep. I'm like, dude, that's too much. I'm like, little clingy. So,
there's the right amount and there's
I need some space.
Yeah.
If you're a Friends fan, we were on a break. So.
Yes, I love it. So, and then, there's a fine line of being helpful and approaching with a heart of service versus being salesy. And so what I love about your process is that it kind of maps out the process itself and it shows you when and where to have certain touch points so that you're helpful and you're serving, but you're not creepy or salesy.
Yeah. And you can set up your automations really so that if someone clicks to say, hey, I want this lead magnet. Awesome. You send them the automated email that says, hey, here's your lead magnet. And then you can watch and see if they actually download it. And if they click through and download, it's like, awesome, cool. Here's some more content that you might be interested in, or more content that builds on what was in that lead magnet and takes it to that next level. But if they don't click on it, you can say, hey, notice you hadn't had a chance to download the content yet. Everyone gets busy. Totally got it. Here's the link again for you so that you can make sure that you don't miss out on this thing that you wanted from us.
Yeah, smart. It's smart. I love that. So you guys, if you have not yet scooped up the free gift, it'll be in a button above, below, somewhere right around this video. So there'll be information.
Area.
It'll be in the area. Exactly what you need to do to grab the gift. We'll make it easy for you. There will be some sort of easy button. And so definitely check that out. And thank you so much, Kevin, for breaking down, how to be more human, but yet systematize and automate and maximize sales at the same time. Super helpful. Of all the strategies and things to systematize, I think this is the number one thing that any business owner can systematize, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, it is. And the key is it's really funny because when I meet with new businesses that are wanting to do automation, they're all excited. Yeah, we're going to automate sales. It's going to be awesome. They come in with these really big, grandiose ideas of all the things they want to automate and how data is going to be flying everywhere. And I normally will take them like 10 steps back. And I'm like, all right, so let's find the one thing that we can automate that's going to have some immediate impact into your quality of life, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, so that you can actually spend more time building your business. What is that one thing? Are we automating the thank you email? Are we
one step at a time, right?
Yeah, one little thing that's going to be easy for us to build for you and get you using it, and it's going to make you happy when it works. Yeah. Because you can always add to it. Sure. But if you get too complex right away, now there's too much opportunity for things to break and not to work correctly. And if you're not an experienced automator who, this is what I do every day is build stuff. So if something breaks, I'm like, oh, I know what I did. I forgot to do this thing. Most people are like, oh, now it's going to take me days to figure out what I did wrong. And they just get frustrated and they stop. And they're like, this doesn't work. Well, no, you tried to go too big. You tried to build a Titanic instead of a sailboat.
Right. Like start small and add and add and add. And it also helps that you have the perfect level of geekiness for this. Like,
I have a nice balance between geekiness and actually being able to talk to people. So
yes, exactly. Yes. Well, I love that. Thank you so much, Kevin. This was super valuable. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Impactful Entrepreneur Show. If you found amazing value here, like, subscribe, and leave us a review to help other people find the high value content that we share, and find us on social media so we can continue the conversation. See you in the next episode.